The call came in at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in February. Dispatcher, what is your emergency? And then a small voice, shaking, barely above a whisper, said, My daddy's hurting my mommy. Please help. And Kendrick Okonkwo, who had been working dispatch for the Clarksville Police Department for 11 years, who had heard people die and talked jumpers off ledges and guided terrified parents through CPR, found himself talking to an 8-year-old girl named Iris, who was hiding in a closet with her little brother, telling her she was brave, telling her help was coming, staying on the line for 7 minutes until the sirens arrived and the pounding on the door finally ended the violence she had been too small to stop. What happened after Kendrick couldn't let go of that voice, after he found her in foster care and showed up every Saturday with a book or a puzzle or just himself, after the Covenant Keepers fixed the foster home's roof and helped the family move into an apartment and threw a party called Iris's Day to celebrate the bravest 911 call any of them had ever heard, proved that answering a call for help doesn't end when you hang up the phone, that the smallest voices often carry the greatest courage, and that sometimes the family you need finds you through a whisper in the dark. The call came in at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in February. Dispatcher, what is your emergency? A small voice, shaking, barely above a whisper. My daddy's hurting my mommy. Please help. Kendrick Okonkwo had been working dispatch for the Clarksville Police Department for 11 years, and in all that time, he had never gotten used to calls from children. There was something about a young voice, trying so hard to be brave, that cut through every defense he had built up. What's your name, sweetheart? Iris. My name is Iris. Okay, Iris. How old are you? 8. Kendrick's fingers were already moving, pulling up the address from the cell tower ping. Dispatching units. You're being very brave, Iris. Can you tell me where you are right now? I'm in the closet, in my room. My little brother's with me. Good girl. That's exactly right. You stay in that closet and keep your brother quiet. Help is coming. Can you stay on the phone with me? A pause. Then, I'm scared. I know you are. But you did the right thing. You called for help. That's the bravest thing you could do. Now I need you to stay on the line and tell me what you hear, okay? Okay? Kendrick listened to the sounds coming through the phone. Shouting. Something breaking. A woman crying. A man's voice, loud and angry. Words he couldn't quite make out. And under it all, the quiet breathing of an 8-year-old girl who had just done the hardest thing she would ever do. Kendrick Okonkwo was 46 years old, a former Army communications specialist who had been riding with the Covenant Keepers MC for 14 years. Dispatch was his day job, the thing that paid the bills and let him use the skills he'd developed in the military. The club was his family, the brothers who had been there when his marriage fell apart, when his mother passed, when the nightmares from his deployment years got bad enough that he couldn't sleep. He had taken thousands of 911 calls in 11 years. He had heard people die. He had talked jumpers back from ledges. He had guided terrified drivers through CPR on their own children. But something about Iris's voice stayed with him. The units arrived at the house on Maple Street in 7 minutes. Kendrick stayed on the line with Iris the entire time, talking her through the sounds of sirens approaching, the pounding on the door, the shouts of "police" that finally ended the violence. He heard her cry when they told her it was safe to come out. He heard her ask about her mother. He heard the officer's gentle voice telling her that Mommy was going to be okay, that she was going to get help, that Iris had done a very good job. Then the call ended, and Kendrick was alone in the dispatch center, with the echo of an 8-year-old's fear still ringing in his ears. He should have let it go. That was the rule in dispatch. You take the call, you send the help, you move on. Getting emotionally attached to callers was a fast track to burnout. But 3 days later, Kendrick found himself at the Department of Child Services, asking about a little girl named Iris. Hit subscribe if you believe that the bravest people are sometimes the smallest. Comment the name of your city and share this with someone who needs to know that one phone call can change everything. The social worker's name was Patricia Bellamy, and she had been in Child Protective Services for 23 years. She looked at Kendrick with the weary eyes of someone who had seen too many cases and not enough good endings. "You're the dispatcher who took her call?" Kendrick nodded. "I just wanted to make sure she's okay, that she landed somewhere safe." Patricia was quiet for a moment, weighing how much to tell him. Technically, she shouldn't tell him anything. Privacy rules. Confidentiality. The whole system was designed to protect children from well-meaning strangers. But there was something about the way this man asked, something genuine, something that went beyond casual curiosity. "She's in emergency foster care," Patricia said finally. "Her mother is in the hospital with a broken jaw and 3 fractured ribs. Her father has been arrested and charged with aggravated assault. Her brother is with her in the same foster home." Kendrick absorbed this. "And how is she doing? How do you think?" Patricia's voice carried an edge of exhaustion. "She's 8 years old. She called the police on her own father. Her mother's in the hospital. Her whole world just exploded. She's not doing well. Is there anything I can do?" Patricia studied him. "Why do you care? You're dispatch. You take calls all day. Why this one?" Kendrick thought about the question. He had been asking himself the same thing. "And because she was so brave," he said finally. "She was hiding in a closet with her little brother, terrified out of her mind, and she still did the right thing. She still called for help. Most adults can't do what she did. And now she's probably blaming herself for all of it. I want her to know it wasn't her fault, that she's not the bad guy, that what she did saved her mother's life." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then she wrote something on a piece of paper and slid it across the desk. "This is the address of the foster home. I'm not supposed to give you this, but Iris has been asking about the man on the phone, the one who talked to her until help came. She says he made her feel safe." Kendrick looked at the address, then at Patricia. "Thank you," he said. "Don't make me regret it." The foster home was a small house on Chestnut Lane, run by a woman named Della Morrison, who had been fostering children for 18 years. Kendrick showed up on a Saturday afternoon, unsure of what he was going to say, unsure if he should even be there. He was in civilian clothes, no uniform, no official capacity. Just a man who had answered a phone call and couldn't stop thinking about the voice on the other end. Della met him at the door with the cautious expression of someone who had learned to be careful about who she let near her kids. "You're the dispatcher," she said. Patricia called ahead. "I hope that's okay," Kendrick said. "I just wanted to check on her. Make sure she's all right." Della studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "She's in the backyard with her brother. She doesn't talk much since it happened, but she asked about you. The man on the phone, she calls you. She said you made her feel like someone was coming." Kendrick walked through the house and out the back door. The yard was small but well kept, with a swing set and a sandbox and the kind of organized chaos that came from children living there. A boy of maybe 4 was digging in the sand with a plastic shovel. And sitting on the swing, not swinging, just sitting, was a girl with braids and sad eyes who looked up when she heard the door open. Kendrick stopped at the edge of the patio. He didn't want to crowd her, didn't want to scare her, didn't want to do anything that would make her feel unsafe. "Hi, Iris," he said gently. "My name is Kendrick. I was the one on the phone with you that night. Do you remember me? Iris stared at him. Her eyes were too old for 8, carrying weight that no child should bear. You told me to stay in the closet, she said. You told me I was brave. That's right. And you were. You are. What you did that night was one of the bravest things I've ever heard. Iris looked down at her feet. My mom's still in the hospital. I know. But she's going to be okay, because you called for help. If you hadn't made that call, things could have been much worse. My dad went to jail. Yes, because of me. Kendrick crossed the yard slowly, carefully, and knelt down in front of the swing, so he was at her eye level. No, Iris, not because of you. Your dad went to jail because of what he did. He hurt your mom. That was his choice. You didn't make him do that. You just called for help when she needed it. That's not getting him in trouble. That's saving her life. Iris's chin trembled. My grandma says I shouldn't have called. She says, family problems stay in the family. Kendrick felt a flash of anger that he carefully kept off his face. Your grandma is wrong, he said firmly but gently. When someone is getting hurt, you call for help. Every time. It doesn't matter if it's family. It doesn't matter if it's a stranger. When someone is in danger, you call. And you did. And your mom is alive because you did. Don't let anyone tell you different. If you're enjoying this story, hit that hype button right now. It's free, takes a second, and helps this video reach more people who need to see it. Now back to the story. Kendrick kept coming back. Every Saturday for the next 3 months, he showed up at Della's house with a book or a puzzle, or sometimes just himself, ready to sit in the backyard and be present, while Iris slowly, cautiously, began to trust again. The Covenant Keepers got involved in week 2. Kendrick had mentioned the situation at a club meeting, not asking for anything, just sharing what was on his mind. By the end of the meeting, 17 brothers had volunteered to help in whatever way they could. Della's house needed repairs. The roof leaked, the porch was sagging, and the heating system was older than most of the children who had passed through its doors. The club showed up on a Saturday morning with tools and materials and fixed everything in a single weekend. Iris and her brother Marcus watched from the window, wide-eyed, as a parade of leather vests transformed their temporary home into something safer, warmer, better. Who are they? Iris asked Della. Friends, Della said. Friends of the man who answered your call. The custody hearing came in April. Iris's mother, a woman named Tamara, whose jaw had healed, but whose eyes still carried shadows, was fighting to regain custody of her children. She had left her husband. She had a restraining order. She had a job lined up and an apartment waiting. But the system moved slowly, and there were questions. Could she protect them? Would she go back to him? Was she strong enough to do this alone? Kendrick attended the hearing. He wasn't supposed to be there, had no official role, but Patricia had let him know the date, and he had taken the day off work. He sat in the back of the courtroom and watched Tamara testify about the night her daughter had saved her life, about the years of abuse she had hidden, about the fear that had kept her silent until an 8-year-old showed more courage than she had ever been able to find. And then Iris was called to speak. She was so small in that chair, so young. But when the judge asked her if she wanted to go home with her mother, Iris looked him straight in the eye. My mom tried to protect us, she said. She tried to make him stop. She couldn't, but she tried. And now he's gone, and she's going to try again. And I want to help her try. The courtroom was silent. The judge granted custody to Tamara that afternoon. If Bike Diaries has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. Just a couple bucks a month keeps these stories coming. Links below. and hit that hype button if you haven't already. Now back to the story. The apartment Tamara had found was small, a 2-bedroom in a building that had seen better days, but it was theirs, and it was safe, and that was what mattered. Kendrick and the Covenant Keepers helped with the move. They showed up with a truck, loaded what little furniture Tamara had managed to save, and spent the afternoon setting up beds and assembling a kitchen table and making sure the windows all locked properly. Iris supervised, her sadness slowly giving way to something that looked almost like hope. "Is this really ours?" she asked her mother. "Really ours," Tamara said. "No one is going to hurt us here." Kendrick was installing a new deadbolt on the front door when Iris came to stand beside him. "Are you going to keep coming?" she asked. Kendrick paused his work. "Do you want me to?" Iris nodded. "You make me feel safe, like when you were on the phone. You made me feel like someone was coming to help." Kendrick set down his tools and looked at this small, fierce girl who had done something most adults couldn't do. "Iris," he said, "I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to remember it. What you did that night wasn't just brave. It was extraordinary. You saved your mother's life. You protected your brother. You did the hardest thing a person can do, and you did it at 8 years old." He put a hand on her shoulder. "So yes, I'm going to keep coming. Not because you need me to protect you, but because I want to watch you grow up. I want to see who you become, because someone as brave as you is going to do amazing things, and I want to be there when you do." Iris's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for answering." The months that followed were not easy. Tamara struggled with the trauma of what she had endured. There were therapy appointments and support groups, and nights when the fear came back and she couldn't sleep. There were times when she doubted herself, wondered if she was strong enough, questioned whether she was giving her children what they needed. But she was not alone. The Covenant Keepers had adopted this small family the way they adopted anyone who needed them. Brothers stopped by to check on Tamara, to bring groceries, to take Marcus to the park, so she could have an hour of quiet. Della became a friend and mentor, someone who understood the weight of raising children through crisis. And Kendrick became something harder to define. He wasn't a father figure exactly. Iris had complicated feelings about fathers, and he never tried to replace what had been broken. He was more like an anchor, a fixed point she could rely on, a voice on the phone that had promised help was coming, and then kept coming, again and again, long after the emergency was over. He taught her to ride a bike. He came to her school play. He sat with her when she had nightmares and didn't ask what they were about. He was just there, constant and patient, a reminder that not all men were dangerous, that trust was still possible, that the world contained goodness alongside the pain. On the 1-year anniversary of the call, the Covenant Keepers hosted a dinner at their clubhouse. They called it Iris's Day, a celebration of courage, a recognition of the bravest 9/11 call any of them had ever heard. 37 bikers in leather vests raised their glasses to an 8-year-old girl, now 9, who had done what needed to be done when no one else could. Iris stood at the front of the room, overwhelmed by the attention, clutching Kendrick's hand. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Kendrick told her. "Just let them love you." She looked out at the sea of leather and tattoos, at the hardened men who were wiping their eyes and trying to pretend they weren't, at this strange family that had formed around a single phone call in the middle of the night. "Thank you," she said, her voice small but steady. "Thank you for coming when I called. Thank you for not forgetting me." The room erupted in applause, and Kendrick Okonkwo, 47 years old now, 11 years in dispatch, 14 years in the club, stood beside a 9-year-old girl, and felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Real purpose. The kind that couldn't be measured in calls, answered, or emergencies dispatched. The kind that came from a single voice saying, "Please help," and choosing to actually help, long after the sirens faded and the paperwork was filed. The kind that changed everything. Thank you for watching this story about an 8-year-old girl who called 911 on her own father and the dispatcher who answered and couldn't let go. It was inspired by the thousands of children each year who witness domestic violence and must make impossible choices to protect themselves and their families. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. The Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline is 1-800-42-24-453. You are not alone, and there are people who will help. If a child tells you about abuse, believe them. If a child calls for help, answer. Sometimes the bravest people are the smallest, and they deserve adults who will show up for them. Subscribe to Bike Diaries. Hit that hype button to boost this video. And if you want to support what we do, the membership link is below. Share this with everyone who needs to remember that calling for help is never wrong, that children who speak up should be celebrated, not blamed, and that sometimes the voice on the other end of the phone becomes family. Iris is 12 now. She lives with her mother and brother in the apartment the Covenant Keepers helped them move into, though they're saving for a house. She wants to be a 911 dispatcher when she grows up, because she knows how much it matters to have someone answer when you call. Kendrick Okonkwo is 50. He still works dispatch, still rides with the Covenant Keepers, still has dinner with Iris and her family every Sunday. He keeps a picture on his desk of a 9-year-old girl at a clubhouse, surrounded by bikers, being celebrated for her courage. Tamara is healing. It's slow and it's hard, and some days are better than others. But she's free, and her daughter saved her. That's the part she wants everyone to know. Her daughter saved her, an 8-year-old girl in a closet with a phone. That's the bravest thing she's ever seen.